Councillor Nunn, we have present tonight yourself, Chair. We have Councillor Phil Larratt, Deputy, Councillor James Hill, Councillor Stephen Hibbert, Councillor Mike Hallam, Councillor Brandon Aldred, Councillor Anna King, and Councillor Tim Hadland. George Candula, Chief Executive, Stuart McGregor, Kevin Langley, Peter Bagley, and Phil Harris. And you have the Democratic Services team as well.
Well, thank you, Tracy, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Cabinet meeting. We have had to miss one and take some decisions, but we're glad to be back and operating a full public Cabinet. So it's good to have you along, and it's good to see you, many of you not seen for some time. So welcome to everybody. I don't believe we have any apologies, Tracy.
There are none.
And then, thank you. Then we'll turn, if we may, to the minutes. Has everybody seen, everybody's had a copy of our minutes of the 4th of March. Are there any queries, any suggested amendments, or are we happy with what's contained within our minutes for our last meeting?
Suppose they be accepted, Chairman.
Thank you, Phil. Is that agreed?
Agreed,
Chairman. Thank you very much indeed. We do have an intention to hold part of this evening's meeting in private. You would have seen there are 3 items. We never do this lightly. We rarely have private items. This is on the basis that the information contained in all 3 reports is commercially sensitive, and our key concern would be we feel it would harm good public value for the information to become public, and that's the reason why it's in private. As a consequence, we will be effectively almost adjourning this meeting and then re-zooming in for the private session to take place to ensure that stays private. Sorry, I beg your pardon. In terms of deputation and public addresses, just looking down the list, we would appear to have 1, and we're glad to welcome Mr. Daniel Sohn, who wants to speak to us on item 9, which is the purchase and redevelopment of Riverside House. So if I may, I'll welcome you, Daniel, and it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. This evening I'm speaking in favour of the development of affordable housing at Riverside House in the Delapre and Rushmere area. We need more affordable housing in Northampton, and this proposed development will go some way to achieving that. When completed, the residents will benefit from an excellent open space in Beckett's Park, which is right on their doorstep, in addition to easy access to the town centre and good road links to the A45 and M1. I'm sure that the current trend for redeveloping brownfield sites on the edge of our town centre will have a positive impact in shaping the future of our town centre itself by bringing people back into the town, which in turn will have a positive effect on our local economy. The report this evening states that it is proposed that a local lettings policy is introduced to determine the way in which homes in Riverside House are allocated. Given the extremely close proximity to Northampton General Hospital, can I ask that when the local lettings policy is drawn up, that NHS employees awaiting housing are given preferential consideration when the allocations are made? The apartments will be an investment in the local area and will have a positive impact on the lives of residents. So it's important that the development is ready for the changes in the way we live our lives for years to come. Can I ask if there is scope for some of the 90 car parking spaces to be equipped with electric vehicle charging points? Electric vehicle technology is progressing rapidly and affordability is improving, and this should be promoted. As many of us have found out recently, it's essential to have a fast and reliable broadband connection. The rollout of superfast fibre connectivity is now underway across Northampton. Will this development have access to full fibre broadband in time for the phased occupation? This could and should be delivered into the site along with other utilities and services. In short, this development represents an excellent opportunity, an opportunity for new, good quality, affordable housing without tearing up greenfield sites. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sohn. I think your comments are well thought through. I'm not sure if we have their information specifically on electric charging points. I think your point about the NHS is good, and you may learn more about key worker accommodation when we actually come to the Belgrave House report. But perhaps I would suggest, Stephen, do you want to maybe reference those when you come to present the report a little later? Are you happy with that? Okay, so I can see Stephen's nodding. So thank you for your comments, and appreciate you coming to take the time to share them with us. Okay. I think Mr. Soma's our only speaker, so I'm going to ask at item 5 whether any member of the council has any declaration of interest in the item that's on the agenda. No, I think everybody should.
Item 11, transfer of assets. I'm Upton Parish Councillor.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. I will also declare it.
Sorry,
Mike.
I'm a private sector landlord within the Northampton area.
Okay, thank you very much. And likewise, item 11, I'm a East Onsbury Parish Councillor. Thank you. Is that all the declarations of interest? Thank you. We have this evening no issues reported arising from overview and scrutiny. So we'll take our first of a number of reports which Stephen's presenting us for us this evening. The first one being the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. If you'd like to present that, and then we have a couple of speakers, Councillor Stone and Councillor Birch, who are then going to speak on this item, Stephen. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Although I can't hear anybody else now, so can you confirm you can hear me?
We can hear you, thank you.
I can't pick anything up on the headphones. Okay, go ahead anyway. This is a report seeking approval of the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy and action plan for 2020 to 23. It's required under the Homelessness Act 2002, required to do this every 5 years, and this strategy incorporates the latest legislation, the Homelessness Reduction Act 2017, the Government Code of Guidance, and the National Rough Sleeping Strategy, both introduced in 2018. It's been co-produced with all of our stakeholders in this sector, all worked very well together on this through workshops that were held in 2019 that revisited all actions being taken locally, and it was then put to public consultation in February and March of this year. The strategy, which is with the paper, sets out 4 main objectives: effective and collaborative partnerships, early and targeted intervention, reducing temporary accommodation and ensuring a sufficient supply of suitable housing, and reducing rough sleeping and enabling rough sleepers to thrive. And then it sets out how these objectives, how we'll seek to achieve these objectives. We're already working with officers from South Northampton and Daventry and the County Council to develop a unitary strategy, which I would hope that our strategy will feed into. The action plan has been realistic in terms of timelines. It was in the drafting adjusted to reflect the impact of COVID-19. There is some interesting stuff in the review when people read it now or later about profiling of the homeless. I'm sure that will come of interest to some of you. All of this was prepared before COVID and the recent provision of hotel accommodation, and much I can tell you has been learned from that process, both by us and our guests, many of whom have found a turning point in their otherwise chaotic lives. Cabinet is asked to approve the strategy and action plan and the recommendations at item 2.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed. Right, let's take 2 speakers who've registered, the first of which is Councillor Stone, followed by which Councillor Birch will be speaking. So, Councillor Stone, Danielle, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm here in place, speaking on this item in place of Councillor Smith. I know that she have really wanted to welcome this strategy, and also the learning that Stephen has just talked about in terms of how a Homes First policy really does help tackle the homelessness issue. And I think it's absolutely extraordinary watching how where there's a will, there is a way, where there is a resource, we can really, really impact positively on people's lives. And I think we need to take that strategy and we need to take that learning and make a huge difference in our town. It hurts all of us to have people rough sleeping, to have their chaotic lives played out in front of us all. It hurts all of us. And it's a moral and compelling duty, it seems to me, to make sure that we don't have people sleeping on the streets, we don't have people dying on the streets. So I really welcome the strategy. Thank you.
Very much indeed for your comments. We'll come which is Councillor Birch. Hello, Jane. Welcome. Over to you.
Thank you. And I'm really, really heartened by the strategy. And also, I'd just like to say how much I'm impressed with the work that's been going on since the outbreak of coronavirus. I think the work that's been done is absolutely outstanding. The feedback from the guests has been illuminating, and I think we've learned a huge amount from that. I hope we can build on that. I hope we can maintain those relationships, and I hope we can foster the good work that's been done and actually move these people on. So congratulations to everybody who's been involved, and let's hope that this actually is the start of homes for all those people that have been living on our streets, because it's, you know, it is a very distressing thing for our residents to you know, pass every day in the street. So hopefully beginning of something really, really positive in terms of housing our rough sleepers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Councillor Birch, thank you for your comments, and I'm sure we would all echo what you've said there, both in terms of the work in this strategy, tremendous work that we've not had a public opportunity to recognise the great work that our teams have done in the homeless during the pandemic. We have a very significant number of people who, as a result of the quite intense support they've been able to have in a hotel environment, as Stephen's rightly said, have been able to make significant strides in transforming their lives, and that's incredibly heartening. Stephen, positive comments there. Was there anything though that you wanted to pick up on or respond to at all following our speakers?
I'm grateful to both of them for the support, continued support. I've always had good support from the opposition on matters relating to the rough sleepers. When it comes, Councillor Stone mentioned resources. I think what's critical in this is that we've been able to bring together all the participants in the town and work together. So all those resources brought together, hopefully, will bring us a result. I'm very heartened by the comments of Councillor Birch and Councillor Stone. Thank you.
Good. Yes, thank you, Stephen, and thank you again to Councillors Birch and Stone. Following that, then, as Stephen says, the recommendations to this report are in section 2. Can I just ask you, what we will do actually, if we may, is actively ask for your agreement, if we may, rather than just leave a short pause. So can I ask you just to confirm, please, your agreement? Thumbs up will do, or a pop off mute and say yes. That would be great.
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. That's great. That's item 7. Agreed. Takes us on to item 8, which again is with Stephen. This is the private sector housing enforcement policy. So over to you, Stephen. On this one, we don't appear to have any speakers registered. So over to you.
Yeah, you've got Councillor Stone and Birch registered to speak on item 7.
8. I know we're on 8 now.
Oh, item 8, yeah.
I think we're all. Are we clear on 8?
It's the same speakers again, Chair.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay, hadn't seen that. Right, beg your pardon. We'll be back to you shortly. Thank you.
Yes, I think I marked down that Councillors Stone and Birch are to speak on this item too, Chair. introducing the private sector housing enforcement policy. This is a refresh and an update from the policy from 2017. It will, if agreed, become effective on the 1st of June. It's linked to fees and charges policy and civil penalty policy that's been through Cabinet already. They're all part and parcel of this. If you remember, the civil penalty policy contained a matrix enabling us to justify our decisions on penalties. It maintains an intelligence-led approach that has been supported by government guidance. Extra powers are included that were granted under legislation. You can find that in the report. And the language in the reference to such legislation has been updated. And of course, it incorporates recent case law, which I think I've mentioned before, where the courts have not necessarily been supportive of civil penalties charged by other local authorities. And we've had to take that into account too. I'm sure that this will have a positive impact on inequality and discrimination in the private rented sector, and ensure those in greatest need are not victims of criminal, rogue and irresponsible landlords. The Cabinet is asked to approve the policy.
Okay, thank you very much. And with apologies to our speaker, that was my mistake. I'd scribbled quickly some notes down from Maisie's chat and missed you off there, but no problem at all. Here we go. So again, we welcome Councillor Stone. Danielle, over to you.
Thank you. Just very briefly, Chair, I am blessed by being the ward councillor for Castle, and I love being the ward councillor for Castle, but you will know that there we are impacted greatly by all the kind of issues that affect inner city areas, just as much as it would in a London borough. And so I have continual caseloads, as you will be aware, of private tenants who are victims in one way or another of antisocial behaviour, of rogue landlords, of criminal gangs, of whatever it is that is going on in their neighbourhood. And the service that we provide through private sector housing is the one thing that keeps me sane and keeps them safe. So my worry here isn't about the strategy. I think that's fine. It's about capacity. So for a lot of the casework that I have, it's about timeliness of the interventions. And I understand that there is a big job to do and priorities have to be made. But I do think that we have got a capacity issue in terms of being able to respond appropriately quick enough.
Okay, thank you very much. That sounds like an important point. We'll give Stephen an opportunity to answer that shortly. Well, Stephen, do you want to comment now, or should we take Councillor Birch's comments?
I'm happy to deal with that now. We have obviously expanded the team in recent years. I think that's well documented, and we have a very effective team on the ground. You talk about capacity issues. I often say in answer to this, we can always spend more money, but we do have limits on what we can achieve. But rest assured, the team we have in place are very effective at what they do. And as I say, with their intelligence-led approach and their risk-based way forward, and the way they target those who are the most serious offenders, I'm happy with what they're doing. If Councillor Eldred wants to give me some more money, I'm happy to provide a few more enforcement officers.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Thank you. Let's go to our next speaker then. Again, Councillor Birch. Jane, welcome back.
Thank you. I will reiterate what Danielle has just said about capacity. I know there's a huge backlog in some of the work that needs to be done in this area, and it'll take possibly months, if not years, to fully get to the end of that list. But I would welcome anything that gives more powers to enforcement officers to make sure that our residents are safe, that their leases are secure. There's nothing more important to families and the way that they live their lives and live their lives successfully, to housing that is secure and safe and well managed. I think one of the biggest problems we have in planning is the management of HIMOs. And if we can enforce that management process, bring it up to standard, make sure that it's done efficiently and well, a lot of residents will be much happier with houses of multiple occupation. We need them, so let's manage them well. And I think this goes some way to do that. So I would support this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. Stephen, do you want to make any further comments, or is there anything else to cover, or you think you've covered everything?
I think it's been covered. Again, I'm grateful for the support. I'll just repeat myself. I have every faith in the team that are up there and that are working on this. And you know, they are targeting the serial offenders, but they're also have got scope to deal with what sometimes we refer to as the low-hanging fruit. There are issues, obviously there are obviously a need to do more, but we're doing a great deal with what we've got.
Leader, can I just interrupt? At the time we were declaring interest, or rather Mike was, I was chasing a little arrow around the screen trying to unmute. I need to declare an interest as a private sector landlord as well under the appropriate part of the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. That's noted.
No, okay. Just make a point, Chair. Make a point, Chair. I think Jane raises a very interesting point there. And I was just wondering how integrated our housing enforcement officers are with our planning enforcement officers. Because, I mean, when we approve HIMOs, there are conditions. And I just wonder how do the two teams work together in enforcing HIMOs, and are they well enough integrated, or is there room for greater integration? I think that's something we should perhaps consider. Okay, that's a good point. Does anybody want to make a quick observation on that? Peter, are you able to put a comment in, or perhaps Phil?
Yeah, happy to. They work very closely. The planning enforcement officers went on some of the recent raids on unauthorised properties and were able to serve notices in conjunction with those. I'd also like to say that the intelligence-based approach that colleagues in housing have approached is also extremely helpful in when we are determining planning applications, because we know we've got the absolute up-to-date information, and we're very grateful for the cooperation between the two teams.
That's really good to know, Chair. Very good.
Could I just say something quickly, Chair, if possible?
Please do, James. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, just obviously, yeah, pleased to hear that the teams work well together. Obviously, as you know, we're going to be rolling out Article 4 across the whole borough. So I think it's really good that this policy is coming through now, and we're updating this, because obviously it's going to be impacting more homes as we roll out Article 4. So just to make that observation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Now my screen's frozen. I don't know if that means you can see me. I'm going to persevere and
we can see you. We can see you, Chair.
Oh, very good, very good. Thank you. I'm going to persevere and thank everybody for their comments on that report. Remind you that the recommendation, single recommendation, is at item 2. Can I just ask you to confirm your agreement, please, to the recommendation?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Takes us on to item 9 again with Stephen. Purchase and redevelopment of Riverside House for use as affordable housing. Stephen, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I apologise for the lighting. I seem to be very underlit on this screen. I don't know why. Although it's very hot in this room, I would say. Right.
It's mood lighting. It's good.
Mood lighting, do you think? Mood lighting. At meetings of the council, the full council, I've hinted often when we're talking about housing, about projects that were coming through and that I hope to bring to Cabinet shortly. And during lockdown, the leader has signed off on the turnkey acquisition of Beaumont House, which will provide us with 60 units, 14 1-bed and 46 2-bed. And today we're bringing to Cabinet a full report on Riverside House, which is for similar sort of figures. another 60 units, 16 one-bed, 44 two-bed. Riverside House gives us a chance to bring back into use an office block. It's a 5-story development. The ground floor is occupied by tenants. There is some doubt about how long they'll stay with us as tenants because the lease is up fairly shortly. But we have a good relationship with them through MPH, and I do expect the dialogue with the renewal unit to continue. And indeed, as we develop this project, MPH will be doing all in their powers to minimise disruption to the renal unit. A change of use was already agreed by planning on this, and this is another matter that incorporates a local lettings policy, which I anticipate will be similar to the one at Centenary House, which we opened up in 2019. They anticipate completion of this project by March 2022. Affordable rents is the order of the day, capped at local housing allowance rates. So housing benefit will cover according to entitlement, of course. I have to express grateful thanks to the teams here and at MPH for pulling this together. The recommendations are made at 2-1. Whilst I'm on, I'll talk, Mr. Sohn referred to the lettings policy in particular. As it's developed, I'm sure that matters such as these raised will be taken into account. And the design team, because we don't have a full design yet, but the design team will be working on, and I'm sure it will get back to them about full fibre broadband and electric charging points so that they are also under consideration. Recommendations for the acquisition of this freehold property are at 2-1 and the coming through.
Very good. Thank you, Stephen. Now, again, we have 2 speakers registered for this item 9. Again, it's Councillor Stone, Councillor Birch, and then we have Councillor Brian Markham. So if we may, we'll hand over to Danielle Stone.
Thank you. I just wanted to register my absolute delight at projects like this. I think it's really, really important that we take every opportunity to invest and to build housing. I'm delighted this is going to be affordable housing, and what I'm looking forward to is the development of housing in the town centre, which is mixed and balanced, so it's not ghettoising anybody. And I think this is a step in the right direction. I'm really pleased about it. I think it's fantastic that the housing is, as Daniel said, right near Beckett's Park, which is in my ward, and right near the hospital. And I hope, you know, full advantage is taken of both those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Birch.
Thank you. Again, you know, great news that we're getting more housing into the town, especially affordable housing. And again, for the single people that are finding it so difficult, the young people to afford their first home. I would also make a plea for family homes. I would also make a plea for 3-4 bedroom houses, which seem to be incredibly short supply, especially 4-bedroom houses, for families that are, you know, struggling with space and growing children. So a plea for the larger homes as well. We seem to be getting a lot of the 1 and 2 beds, but can we have a little bit of equality for the larger houses too, please? Councillor Hibbert.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Birch. Perhaps we'll let you comment on that one if you wish to, Stephen, in a moment. We've one last speaker, which is Councillor Brian Markham. And Brian, I believe that you wanted to speak on item 10 as well, but you might sort of combine your comments. But entirely up to you whether you want to speak separately or all in one go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
No, thank you. I pressed the button twice, I wasn't sure. Yes, I'm happy to combine my comments on item 9 and 10. And in fact, in some ways, it's also a comment on the homelessness report earlier on. I think it was time seemed to expand with this council as it goes on and on, but I think it was about 18 months ago, maybe, when Councillor Sally Bearsworth and myself received an update from the Director of Housing and Wellbeing, and mention was made of the proposal, and I think also with the Director of Finance, about the proposals that Stephen Hibbert has mentioned at Council for Beaumont House, for Riverside House, and Belgrave, and of course I've seen them come through Planning Committee, and I'm very pleased. I'm also very pleased to hear tonight, I missed it during lockdown, that Beaumont House is going ahead. Together with things last week at Planning Committee, we had the Woodstock through MPH scheme and the other one, I can't remember the name. They're all very, very welcome, and we have supported them and welcomed the being kept informed of this proposal. I think it's so important that, one, we bring buildings back into use, and I noticed something that they're proposing a 900-year lease or something for Belgrave House. Well, I'm not sure we will need it for 900 years. I'm not sure it will last that long, but it's long term. We're bringing buildings into use. We're bringing people into the town centre, and we're providing homes for those that need it. And a reference was made tonight about homes for people. Those people have been on our streets, as it found now through this going on during the COVID epidemic. Essentially, getting their lives back together again is provided them with homes. And these two proposals and all the others that have been developed and are going through are what will provide those sorts of homes. So we very much support. It's very good that we have such a friendly atmosphere at this virtual meeting, but that's because I think all parties, and credit to the Director of Housing and Wellbeing and to the Cabinet member for the way he listens to people and involves people, and if they have ideas, he's willing to be involved. He cares about these issues, and we're moving. All I would final emphasis, we mustn't lose sight of this when we go to unitary, and whether it's MPH, whether it's partnerships, somehow we have to look at how these sort of developments can be expanded and grow when we're part of the new unitary council, because they're so important. I'm sorry to take a long time, but I'm covering the two items. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for your comments, both about this particular report and the issue generally, and about cooperative working. There's no doubt all this is an important area for all of us, isn't it? The provision of much needed accommodation. And you're right to point out many of these have been, if you like, in the melting pot for an awful long time. So it's so great to see, funny enough, all three come along at more or less the same time. We had a moment in time about a month or so ago on Beaumont House where it was pretty crucial to press that ahead, which we've done. But as you say, these further two, it's absolutely fantastic. We're delighted. And Stephen, I don't know if there's anything in what any of the speakers have said that you want to make further comment on.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I'm grateful for the support, of course. That goes without saying. I'm very grateful for the support. I just wanted to mention the Councillor Birch's comment about the need for 4 beds and 3 beds. Previously, we've discussed the buyback pilot scheme, where we've been acquiring properties on the market, and I can tell you that we've acquired 24, and also as a consequence, we would like to take that forward, and we're bringing together new proposals. Now, I do know, Mr. Harris might correct me, but I do know that at least one or two of those 24 are indeed bigger houses. One is definitely a 4-bedroom house. That report and those new proposals will be brought to Cabinet in July, and I look forward to appraising you of our success in that area, and to press on with it and achieve more and more new housing for our tenants on the waiting list.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. In which case then, once again, draw your attention to the recommendations of this report, which are at section 2. Can I just ask you to indicate your agreement to the recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Agreed. Great. Thank you very much. So item 9 takes us on to item 10, some reference to which has already been made. This is the redevelopment of Belgrave House for affordable rented housing. Over to Stephen shortly to present the report, and then Councillor Stone and Councillor Birch are going to speak on it as well. Stephen, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. The Belgrave House, the Clock House, is well known to all of us. It was first before Cabinet for agreement in principle in January 2019. It's a development that for 122 apartments, MPH involved in the design, the planning process, the cost of the acquisition, the redevelopment, the negotiations over the terms of the finance lease, and heads of terms are agreed and all set to go, subject to this evening's approval. I think we've discussed this particular project many times in the past, so I shall simply ask for everybody to approve the recommendations at 2.1.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much. In which case, we'll move to our speakers. First one, Councillor Stone. Danielle, over to you.
Thank you. Could I ask if the intention for Belgrave House is still for it to be allocated for key workers? Because I think that was a suggestion that came out of the Labour group at an alternative budget meeting quite a while ago. And it seems to me that in a highly stressed situation and a highly stressed economic situation and geographical situation, town centre situation, what we really need is key workers. And if you look at the difficulty the county has, for example, in recruitment of really important posts, we need to be able to do something about that, especially as we're moving into the West North Hants unitary. So I think key worker housing is really, really important. And I know that the COVID crisis has thrown up all kinds of issues for health workers, for example, that are living in unsatisfactory accommodation in very noisy neighbourhoods where they can't get sleep, so they're refreshed for their next shift and things like that. So I think it is a really urgent issue, actually, and I'll be very unhappy if it's no longer deemed to be for key workers.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm pretty certain I had a meeting a little while ago with MPH and the Police and Crime Commissioner, and we were looking at an allocation of some of the apartments there for his degree students. He thinks that'll be a good way of attracting them to the town. So pretty certain there's no change. I'm sure Steve will tell me if there's any revision. Yes.
Yeah, Chair, on that one, on 3.2.46, it clearly states in there, Northampton General Hospital, Northamptonshire Police, Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue, West Northampton Council staff, and local retail and leisure businesses. So it's still in the report, 3.2.46.
Thank you very much. That's extremely helpful, Brandon. Thank you. In which case, then we'll move on to our next speaker, Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, with that clarification, I really have nothing else to add. I'm just very pleased that 3.2.46 is there. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. I don't think there's probably any need for any further comments, and Steve, is that it? Should we move to the vote on the recommendations?
I was just going to want to add that the local lettings policy has been widened on this one, but that's largely because, as we've all appreciated under the COVID virus, the designation of key workers has expanded somewhat. So Mr. Harris and the MPH team will get together and they'll work out a local lettings policy suitable for this. But as it says in the report, as Councillor Eldred has pointed out, it does make reference to key workers such as health workers and the police. The other thing that Councillor Markham raised previously, I nearly forgot it because he mentioned it on the previous report, about the 900 years. That's because of the way the Legal and General have got their project set up in that area, and it's linked to the Grosvenor Centre, and the lease on that doesn't run out for 900 years, as I understand it, and that's why freehold returns to the borough in the 30th century, and I look forward to that celebration event.
Very good, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed. At that point then, it's time to draw your attention to the recommendations, which as always are at section 2. Can I just ask you to indicate your agreement to those recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Takes us on to item 10. Stephen gets a chance for a rest because this one is with Tim, and this is the community asset transfer paper. Tim, over to you, after which we have one speaker, which is Councillor Birch. Tim.
Thank you, Leader. This is a report that builds on quite a long history of devolving or endeavouring to devolve community assets down to the local community that benefits from them and should really be controlling them. We've been out to consultation to ask parish councils for in effect, their shopping list. That's now come back, and the list is set out at paragraph 3.1.15, and all these properties, as set out and shown in more detail in the appendix, are to be transferred to the parishes with suitable safeguards to ensure their future community use. Regrettably, the maintenance is a little bit more complicated because we have the environment services contract and so on, but ultimately parishes will be 100% responsible for them. And in the meantime, they will be responsible for everything except grass cutting, which we'll carry on with for a while. And the transfers will be subject to covenants to ensure that the land remains in community use. So that is the nub of it. The list is set out there. The recommendations are set out to bring all that into play. And I commend it to the Cabinet.
Thank you very much indeed. At which point then we'll go to our one speaker, which is Councillor Birch. Jane, over to you.
Thank you. I declare an interest as a trustee of Community Spaces Northampton here. The transfer of this community property and land to respective parish councils is a major decision for tonight's Cabinet. Empowering communities is at the heart of building resilience and a sense of pride in our neighbourhoods. But in order to make this a successful, sustainable project, I believe most strongly that more thought and scrutiny needs to be put into the process. It is really important to get this right. This is just the beginning of the transfer of NBC community assets to either parishes, town council, and unitary authority. Each of those councils must be given the support, both financial and in kind, to make this transfer of ownership and responsibility successful. A standard lease document, a management agreement, should be drawn up to avoid multiple leases, each incurring significant legal fees. The buildings and land need condition surveys so that the future expenditure on maintenance and repair can be estimated by the new councils. In these transfers, the liabilities will be passed to councils, parishes, towns, or unitary. Many of these assets will be managed for the benefit of the communities in which they sit. The management needs to be responsive to local needs and provide the support and framework to enhance the life of the residents. These buildings and land will become ever more important as we move into a post-COVID world. They will provide the affordable option for leisure and social interaction for families whose circumstances will have changed. They're a hugely valuable community resource, and the transfer of responsibility from NBC to other bodies needs to be done with care and consultation. From my own point of view as a trustee of Community Spaces Northampton, we brought this to the attention of the leader, the CEO and portfolio holder over a year ago. The transfer of St Crispin's has been discussed with Upton Parish Council over a number of months. We have verbal agreements, but the details need considerable work. Very happy for that to go ahead. Discussions over Bellinge Community Centre have been minimal. An informal conversation with 3 members of a Billing Parish Council have not been followed up. We have no agreement with them at this stage. I'm highlighting the discrepancy of the consultation process as an example of what is to come. There are in all 21 Borough Council owned community centres in the town. This process will have to be gone through with every one of them. Will it be to transfer to a parish, to the town council or the unitary? Will responsibilities be the same for each council? I'm asking for your assurance that the transfer process is standard, consistent and robust, and it will not expose smaller councils to high cost legal fees. It will be timely and efficient, and in the interest of the community, they will benefit. I feel this is a really important decision that you're making tonight, and I want to make sure that the consultation and the subsequent process that we go through with this is really, really well thought through. Thank you.
Oh, man. Oh.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm really, really sorry to butt in, but would you allow me to speak as well, please?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, please, go ahead then. Yep.
I think what Jane has said is really, really important, and I'm sure it will be taken on by the Cabinet and the portfolio holder. The point I wanted to make was this, that we've got a COVID crisis, so we're going into Brexit. We're looking at a major, major, major recession. The communities that are struggling now are going to be really hard hit by recession. We know that under local government reorganisation, what the things that we're going to be looking for is devolved work into the communities for adult social care and health and for children's services. The only way that those are going to happen successfully and meaningfully for their local communities is through the use of community hubs. That means, for me, that the use of our community spaces is ever more important. It's never been more important. And we mustn't therefore risk any failure. And I think we need to take on board the differentials between different areas. You know, there is a huge difference between what goes on in Hunsbury and what goes on in Castle, what goes on in Semelong and what goes on in Upton. There are huge differences, and some communities struggle much more than others. The only way, it seems to me, that we're going to really benefit from this transfer, and I heard what Councillor Haddon said in terms of, you know, benefiting your own local community. It's much more important than that. One of the things that we've seen with the COVID crisis is the interplay of different interests and the need for us all to be supporting each other across different kinds of boundaries. And I think that's also true here. If one community goes down, it affects everybody. So it's in everybody's interest to make sure that everything is as successful as it possibly can be. And I just think it's not going to work unless we put in resource. So we need to ensure the fabric of the buildings is secure for the long term, however that is going to happen. But we also need community engagement work going on to make sure that our communities have got the skills, they've got the time, they've got the resource, they've got the motivation to make it happen.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Now, it may be that I've missed a couple of other people wanting to speak. I've had a text, he's resorted to text, that's Councillor Eldred. Just a thought here, please do wave, but actually also, I don't know if everybody's found the raise hand button. If you click on participants at the bottom of your screen, it'll bring a list of participants up and you can hit raise hand, because I'm not certain I've been as vigilant as I might be spotting speakers. But meantime, Brandon, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, just to say on the Blackymoor Open Spaces and Community Centre, it's something that East Hunsbury residents and the Parish Council have been asking for many years now to take this on. So this report is actually come at the best time. You you know, it's great for the residents of East Hunsbury. Like I said, they've been waiting for this for a long time now. They've been running the community centre for a number of years now, and this has been going on for some time. So I'm pleased to see the report here tonight, and hopefully now we can move forward with the parish and get things more in control to the parish, and they make sure that is properly used by the community like it has been for the number of years it has been.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Anybody else going to make any further comments on this at all? If not, we'll pass back to Tim. Anna.
Sorry, I did raise my hand, but you obviously weren't looking. I think that this is a piece of work that we've all been working on for a long, long time. It's been years that we've been discussing all of this. This is something really positive for areas. It's going to be able to give them their own stability, to look forward, to have their own plans. They don't want the borough council holding their hands and overlooking their shoulders all the time. This is something that local people can really get involved in and take great pride in their areas. So I'm completely going to support this.
Thank you, Anna, for your comments. Phil actually has also raised his hand. So, Phil, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is an excellent report. And Tim said in his introduction that this is what we're putting through, what's detailed in the report at paragraph 3.1.5. I just want to make sure that this isn't the end of it. This is only the start of it, because the parishes have actually asked for more. More is currently being processed, and there will be further reports coming in due course in relation to other assets that they've asked to take on board. I think that I always believe that the best place for assets to rely is within the community. We've some very effective parish councils within the town who are quite capable of running these facilities and have run them exceedingly well for a number of years. And Brandon just mentioned about Blackymore Community Centre, which is a fantastic facility that they have the parish council's been running. So I've every confidence that the parish councils can run these. Councillor Stone mentioned about skills and skills audit and getting people out there and community work. I think we need to recognise as well the work that the parishes are doing themselves in this area. I mean, for example, Liz Carroll-Wheat has been engaged by East Hunsbury Parish Council and has delivered some fantastic work up there, with Wootton as well, in generating seniors clubs, youth work and everything else. So I think, you know, some people underestimate the ability and capacity of parishes, and I think many of them are moving ahead and doing a fantastic job. So I have every confidence in them taking on these facilities, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. It may just be appropriate also to make a distinction between running and owning. So in some situations, parishes, particularly the larger, more established, where they have perhaps staff members on the payroll or full-time staff members, are in a position to run their centres. Of course, the other aspect to it is in some situations they're paying the costs of all the refurb maintenance, which I think is the East Hunsbury example. But we've also got, and this is particularly, I think, those that Jane refers to, those that are currently run by community spaces. And we have made a commitment, and happy to reiterate that here, Jane, that we will work to support what we think will be continue to be a bright future for community spaces, with many parishes probably choosing not to suddenly change the way in which things may operate, particularly when it comes to those new parishes, which as yet there's no clear proposals here for transfers to a brand new parish. We'd have a certain caution over that, just like you would. But nevertheless, a new parish setting up will have a lot to deal with, and taking on the running of a centre from a successful organisation, as we've discussed before in community spaces. I don't think that will be attractive to a brand new parish council. So we will once again, and I know we've had an email in the last few days from yourself and Toby, who run community spaces. George, Chief Executive, and I will be happy to meet and discuss again. We just haven't had a day like ours to get back to you, I'm afraid, in the last 4 or 5 days, but we will. And we're happy to make sure that transition to those new parishes or whatever is as smooth as possible, because we believe CSN is doing a good job in operating those centres effectively. Sorry, Tim, a few comments there from me. Your report, back to you. Anything you want to add following the comments on?
No, as far as this report is concerned, you can see from the list that in terms of numbers, the vast bulk of it is parcels of land, which are obviously less complicated than the community centres. I think we've shown by the different natures of the parish councils and the facilities across the town that we're not in a position to do a one-size-fits-all, unless we're dealing with community centres that are operated by the same operator. I would have loved to have seen a simpler process to make all this happen. I'd love to see it all happen on one side of A4. Regrettably, that's not possible. But this is a stage in the road. As other parishes come on stream and as parishes get their feet under the table with land ownership, they may feel that they want to spread their wings more. And we as an authority, as long as we live, will be like that, I think, and will always encourage that. West Northamptonshire is probably far more devolved in South Northampton, Daventry, in terms of parishes in any event. And so I would expect that process and that devolution to continue. The recommendations are set out.
Sorry, Chair, can I just make one more point? I forgot to ask it. It's with regard to Penvale Park in East Hunsbury, which we're looking to transfer. We have actually had problems, significant problems up there with flooding, and a footpath was washed away. And I believe that there is a significant amount of money in next year's capital programme to repair the damage that those floods have been causing to that footpath. This isn't going to affect that going ahead, is it?
Do you know the answer to that, Tim?
Not as far as I'm aware. I'm looking to see if I can find Kevin, see what he's looking like. No, we'll check that out. And I'm sure if it's in the programme, then it will happen.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Now, I think a moment ago, I'm sorry, I wasn't being too vigilant on the hands raised. James, were you going to speak a moment ago, or are you okay now?
I was just to say, Chair, obviously I fully support this report. I'm really happy to see it coming through. And I think it highlights the importance of parish councils, especially as we move into West Northampton unitary, and how important those closer councils are going to be moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Jolly good. In which case, the recommendations, as Tim says, are at section 2. So if I can ask you just to confirm your agreement to the recommendations for that report.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Takes us on to item 12, which is the Northampton Economic Growth Strategy. Again, this is with Tim. Tim, over to you. And we do have one speaker, I believe, coming up on this, which I think is Councillor Marriott.
Councillor Marriott isn't with us today, Chair.
No, I couldn't see him, so that's why I was just going to check the list. Danielle, would you like to speak on his behalf? Okay, thank you very much. We'll bring Councillor Stoney to speak on Councillor Marriott's behalf. Meantime, over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Leader. This is a meaty piece of work, bringing up to date our strategy from way back, would you believe, 2008. It has been exhaustively prepared initially by Dayton Bell, who were commissioned in March of last year to do the necessary groundwork, data collection, very extensive stakeholder engagement right across the economic piece as well, and to produce this strategy that we now see, which is under a number of headings. The aim of the whole thing is to stitch us in with all the various other interests, regional interests, Oxford, Cambridge, MK corridor, East-West Rail, although I have to say the East-West Rail isn't actually mentioned in detail in this report, but it will be by the time it's published and minor modifications are made. It will have a list of various headings under which it will be driven forward. The first, being economic, is to support innovators, entrepreneurs, and social enterprise. The second, as you would expect with all the work that we've been doing hitherto, is to bring forward a 21st century town centre, then to maximise economic benefits of the cultural and heritage assets that we have in Northampton, which make us very much a cut above other similar towns in the area. To raise the town's profile, we've always rather hit ourselves under a bit of a hedge, and we really need to be rather more aggressive, I think, in the way that we promote ourselves, sing about our successes, and trumpet our opportunities. We need to make sure that we have employers right at the heart of the skills system to make sure that the skills programs that we put in place actually produce the skills and employees that we need to take the economy forward. We're already doing good work, and that needs building on as a digital town. And also there is tremendous work to be done with infrastructure, which we're all well aware of. And that, again, is set out. We also need to support key sectors, which will, as we've said, include the creative and cultural industries, advanced manufacturing, which is one of our strengths locally, financial services, logistics, health and well-being, one of the largest employers in the town, retail, and also, of course, as we've had in recent history, making sure that we tackle the climate emergency as it impacts on us. The action plan, which starts at page 253, sets out how we will go about all this over time. Now, as a council, we obviously only have a life until next year, but we will be, or the Northampton community and the economy will be a major component of West Northamptonshire for the future. And this strategy puts us in a good place to influence the future strategy of the continuing council and make sure that everything is in place to Northampton's benefit. So there it is. Happy to answer any questions, and the recommendations are as set out.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, a great deal of work gone into that, and something really important for us to have, I think. We've one speaker to comment. Councillor Stone is going to speak. So Danielle, over to you.
Thank you very much. I was really pleased to receive this report. I really value all the work that's gone into it, and I really value Councillor Hadland's comments as well. I'd like to address some of the points on page 217. I'm thinking about how this strategy is going to be played out in terms of the recession that we know is coming. And maybe we're going to have to look at it again in the autumn, in the spring next year, so that we add in actions which are about mitigating the impacts of recession on our communities. I think that might be quite important. I just want to address a couple of things, though, in terms of stakeholders. One of the things that struck me when I first came to Northampton, I'm an inner city girl, I come from London and I come from Sheffield. I couldn't believe when I first came to Northampton how white it was. I could not believe it. It wasn't how I'm used to living. My experience of Northampton is that it has got more and more diverse, and over the years that I've lived here, and wonderfully so. So each community brings with them, you know, different cultural traditions, different food, different ways of behaving, different things to contribute to our society. You would never guess that from reading this report. I think we're missing a trick. So all those communities bring with them lots of different languages, lots of different global connections. You know, if we are going to regenerate and give ourselves a sound economic base, we need to look at the people in our town as our resource. And I think we need to have a languages policy. I think we need to be engaging with the communities, and I think they should be seen as stakeholders, and they should have been consulted about this strategy and help inform this strategy. So I regret that. I think if we're looking at our creative industries to be an engine for regeneration and economic strength, then we're running into difficulties, aren't we? Because of the COVID crisis, there is a national crisis now with our cultural industries. So I think that's going to play really badly if we're not careful. I think the comments on page 217 about school leave is really important. We've got to address skill needs and we've got to empower school leavers into work or into further education, into higher education. Our present school leavers are going to find it really, really difficult because of what's happened to them with the COVID crisis. And I think for a few years, that impact is going to be felt amongst our young people. So we need a strategy for supporting them, and maybe the employers can help us do that. I think it's quite amazing that we have got such a young population. That bucks the national trend, doesn't it? And I think we need to have regard for that and think about what we need to be doing to support and protect our young people and provide them with every opportunity. So I think the motion that was passed at council supporting a youth centre, which is not a youth club, it is not youth activities, it is something much bigger than that. I think it was really, really important, and I would like to
Chair.
in our strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. I'll let Tim come back, and Phil's looking to come back in a second. I think any strategy like this is a snapshot in time. It's fair to say that so it's got to be a dynamic process. It's fair to say there have been particularly radical things happening in the last month or two. So I take your point. Tim may have something more to say on this. I think, to be absolutely honest, this is a strategy for everybody, and it excludes nobody, and it doesn't actively seek to gain the views or support particular people through any type of separation, any more or any less than anybody else. I'd ask Tim to reflect on that, perhaps comment further, or somebody else may wish to. Meantime, Phil's going to come in. Councillor Larratt. Phil, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to refer to the issue of rail, and I'm pleased to hear Tim's comments, and I welcome that, because when I looked at page 239, and the paragraph at the top of the page there, it talks about rail and rail connectivity, and I don't think it fully represents our aspirations going forward. We are already heavily engaged in the East-West Rail project. We're looking to get that extended to Northampton to improve Northampton's connectivity, utilising the new railway line. We've also met with Avanti West Coast, who've taken over from Virgin, and how they're going to operate going forward, and particularly post HS2 and the opportunities that provides for the sort of speed of trains that we've currently got bypassing Northampton, for them to actually come to Northampton and provide that better rail service. I'm regretting that we haven't spoken to the new franchise or the private sector operator who's opening up a route from London to Blackpool, why that didn't come through Northampton. I still think we've got a lot to do, and I think that we need to make sure that this document recognises our aspirations for East-West Rail, for connectivity, better connectivity, utilising the West Coast Main Line now and post HS2. And also we need to remember we've got the joint core strategy that's being looked at, and that is actually talking about reopening the Northampton to Market Harbour railway line. That would actually give Northampton a link directly to the East Midlands, and we're technically, although we're not always included, we're technically a part of the East Midlands region, and that would link us nicely to Nottingham and Derby and Sheffield and places like that. So, you know, I just think that comments, I still think we need to beef up the document with regard to our aspirations for rail. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Phil. I don't think we have anybody else, certainly no hands raised. So at which point I'll probably pass back to Tim. Tim, I don't know if you want to make any further comments based on the comments that have been made there.
Well, the question of rail obviously does need beefing up, and because we're members of the East-West Rail Group, and we'll make sure that that's done before the document is finally published. As far as sections of the community that Councillor Stone may feel are left out, this is for the whole economy of the whole of Northampton, without any fear or favour. And that is the way that it is being constructed, and that's the way that it will be taken forward. So with that in mind, I would just draw your attention to the recommendations at 2.1, 2 and 3 and ask for your approval.
Agreed.
Okay, is that agreed? Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So that was item 12, and that's the last of our public items. As a consequence, although I can't see that we have any other people in the meeting, so we may all be entitled to remain in the meeting, I'm going to suggest that we still use the link, the second link that's been sent to us, to recreate a new meeting, which will ensure that the recording will end at this point and ensure that the subsequent part of the meeting is in private. Is that agreed? Has everybody got the link that I think Tracy kindly sent out earlier today for the next meeting? Yep, I think we're all okay. Okay, in which case I'll end this meeting here. I will just make a comment that at this point, can I thank particularly Democratic Services and Support for the additional work that's involved getting a very heavy bundle of papers to people and for facilitating a meeting in unusual circumstances, and also to all those officers involved in the reports that we have considered so far, both for the fantastic quality of the reports, but also the enormous amount of work that's continued even during lockdown on all these different important areas. But at that point, we'll draw the meeting to a close.
So, Chair, can I just quickly say something?
Please, Brandon.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, obviously, we the passing of Councillor John Caswell this week, which is really sad news. I just like to put it on record, obviously, from all of us, our condolences to Cheryl and the family, and especially under these difficult circumstances. And hopefully they're keeping well, and our thoughts and prayers with them at this sad time.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you ever so much. Yes, that might have been something I'd mentioned at the start of the meeting. Certainly tomorrow, our annual meeting will be marking the loss of Councillor Caswell with a minute's silence, but you're quite right to raise it here. Yeah, thoughts are with his family, and we'll miss his enormous contribution to the council and to the wider town. Thank you very much.
Can I just make one other final comment, Leader? This is a bit of a moment in history, isn't it, for our first publicly broadcast meeting?
Yes.
Going out globally, and I think we ought to mark that as being a great success so far.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for everybody for how you've adapted to the technology, including myself, and to all those who have given us help and trained us up on it. You're absolutely right. It's quite a significant occasion, Tim, isn't it? Thank you very much. Okay, no further comments. See you in 5 minutes when we dial back